Most people assumed the American Revolution ended cleanly. The colonies broke away, Britain signed the treaty, and everyone just moved on. But that's far from the truth. When you zoom out and look at the world at that moment, that version starts to feel a little too neat. Because in the late 1700s, Britain was the largest empire on Earth. A global power with ships in every ocean, colonies on every continent, and enough money and manpower to fight half the planet at once. And when an empire like that loses something as valuable as the American colonies, it usually doesn't just let it go. Yet Britain did. And it had so many chances of getting it back. Yet they didn't. Not in 1783, not in 1790, not in 1800, not even after the War of 1812, when British troops marched into Washington and burned the capital to the ground. So the obvious question is, why did the most powerful empire on Earth never make a serious attempt to take it back? And why did Britain, of all countries, accept defeat and move on? To understand it, you need to watch this video. Back then, there were no coast-to-coast borders, no sprawling cities, no railroads stitching the continent together. What existed instead was a long, narrow strip of settled land pressed between the Atlantic Ocean on one side and the Appalachian Mountains on the other. To the east was an ocean that took weeks, sometimes months to cross. To the west was dense wilderness, hostile terrain, and powerful Native American nations beyond British control. And in between lived a population that knew the land intimately because they had built their lives around it. Now, on paper, Britain had the world's strongest navy, a professional army, decades of combat experience, and an economy capable of sustaining long wars. On the other side was a loose collection of colonies with militias and limited resources. But maps have a way of humbling empires. Every British soldier and his equipment had to be shipped across the Atlantic at enormous cost just to reach the battlefield. The Americans, meanwhile, didn't even fight like a European army. They didn't defend territory the way Britain expected. They didn't rely on set-piece battles or fortified positions. Instead, militias spread into forests, crossed rivers they knew by heart, and struck where British control was weakest. Britain could take cities. It could seize ports. It could win battles. But it couldn't control the land in between, and that distinction mattered. For every stronghold Britain captured, it inherited miles of hostile terrain it couldn't effectively govern. The deeper British forces pushed inland, the more expensive and fragile their position became. Victory didn't bring stability, it brought responsibility, and responsibility drained the empire faster than defeat ever could. That was the first lesson Britain learned in America. But history rarely waits politely for one problem to be solved before introducing another. Because just as Britain was coming to terms with losing its American colonies, something far more dangerous began unfolding much closer to home.